Good day, everyone. To all our attendees in this special lecture, thank you so much. Your presence manifests not only your interest in linguistic research, but also in mental health awareness. So thank you for giving your time and for taking the interest in listening to this special lecture on depressive language features and ideologies. Now, before I proceed, let me just give you a background why I became so interested about depressive language. Well, for many years now, I have observed that there have been numerous Facebook groups that admit people with depression so that they would have a safe platform where they could academically discuss certain things about depression, or they could extend help, most especially to those individuals who might find it very difficult to seek for professional assistance. And I got so interested because in most of these groups, people have found a safe haven where they could express themselves freely away from the stigma happening in society. And this provided me the impetus to conduct the study on depressive language features and ideologies. As a matter of fact, this is an ongoing study. This is for my dissertation for the degree PhD in Applied Linguistics. And I am just so excited to share a portion of my findings so that you would better understand what is in store of us in terms of applied linguistics and in terms of studies that focus on depressive language. And what else could we advocate for? What else could we advance for to raise awareness with regard to mental health problems? So I think the very best way for me to start this brief discussion is for me to set the context, for us to better understand what depression, social media, and language are and how they are interrelated with one another. Now, more than 264 million people suffer from depression worldwide, and depression is the leading cause of disability worldwide. That's according to WHO in 2020. Well, nowadays, we really cannot deny the fact that most of our young individuals, even the old ones, are encountering problems when it comes to mental health. And some of these do not have the professional assistance that could really help them all the way for them to recover or to recuperate from whatever they have been going through. Though the Philippines has consistently ranked in the top 5 of Global Optimism Index, the National Center for Mental Health has revealed a significant increase in monthly hotline calls regarding depression, with numbers rising from 80 calls pre-lockdown to nearly 400 now during the pandemic. And we cannot deny the fact that this pandemic has also caused several of our young individuals, most especially students on the college level, to undergo these mental health problems, such as depression. And this is really alarming. This is alarming because more and more, these people have been experiencing depression, and worse is that some of them resorted to suicide. While there are many ways on how to clinically address depression, many individuals still resort to using various internet fora for self-help. And this statement could be corroborated with various related literature, pieces of literature that would support that most of our young ones are afraid to seek for professional help because of this stigma. And some of them do not even channel themselves with the public, with their friends, or with their peers because they're afraid that they could be judged because of their mental health condition. For Stainsward and Ostman in 2006, these fora are an inexpensive way for a large number of people with depression to access information and support. And this could be heavily manifested on the presence of different Facebook groups where people could freely exchange information about their mental health status or their coping mechanisms or their professional help. And in that way, people actually have a safe haven where they could freely express themselves, not only in terms of how they seek for professional help or professional support, but also in terms of how they feel with other people who also suffer from the same condition, mental health condition. And this is the very reason why it's really a big matter for us to deepen our understanding of depression, social media, and language. Now, Rude et al. In 2004 highlight that people are increasingly utilizing social media platforms such as Twitter and Facebook to express their thoughts and emotions with their contacts or friends. And I think this is one good thing about social media, in contrast to most people telling that or saying that social media have become one of the reasons why most people have been depressed, because people nowadays, most especially the young generations, have become so influenced with the media, with the people or the influencers that they see on these social media platforms. However, on a lighter note, we could say that social media have become a safe haven for these individuals who could not find a safe place to express themselves in society. And Facebook groups or even Twitter as a platform where they could rant, they could express themselves, have become the best platforms for these individuals. Tauzik and Pennebaker in 2010 posit that the words people use in daily life project who they are and the social relationships they are in. In fact, language has been considered to be the most common and reliable way for individuals to translate their thoughts and emotions into shapes that other people can easily understand. And this is specifically true not only based on the studies conducted by Pennebaker in the previous years, but also based on several related studies that would point out that words are a projection of one's personality. Well, there have been several studies already correlating words with one's personality or words with one's experience. We could really point it out that in the context of depression or in the context of mental health, we could use words as instruments for us to better understand not only the experiences of these individuals, but also their condition, their mental health condition. Chowdhury, Gammon, Counts, and Horvitz in 2018 said that the emotion and language used on social media posts may be indicative of feelings of worthlessness, guilt, pessimism, and self-hatred that characterize major depression. Well, other people or other scholars would point out that there has to be this diagnosis first before you could tell if a person is really depressive or not. But how about for those individuals who have not sought professional help, for them to really identify themselves accurately if they are suffering from, let's say, MDD or major depressive disorder? Well, for these individuals, they would rely heavily on how they would express themselves on social media. And for us to identify them, of course, we would not need any diagnosis at all for us to tell if there are signals of these mental health conditions. Because several scholars, academicians have already pointed out that even words could be used as a platform for us to identify if a person is suffering from mental health condition. And sometimes, in the advent of technology and in how engaged we are when using our social media platforms, oftentimes we disregard these red flags, these signals of suicide or mental health conditions, not only with our friends, but also with other people on social media or on the various virtual commons available nowadays. Now, the primary problem here is the gap here is that only a few studies focusing on depressive language were conducted in the past. For example, depression in social media, depression forums, psychological meaning of words, depressed affects, mental health disorders in social media era, and psychological aspects of natural language use. And if you noticed, most of these studies have been conducted by professionals or experts already in the field, known scholars in the field of psycholinguistics, and those who have really been engaged in theorizing depressive language and its features. For example, Pennebaker. And surprisingly, when I searched online, I'm not really sure though, but when I searched online, I could not really see a number of studies conducted in the Philippine context that would tell that there have been advocacies pertaining to the study of depressive language, features, and ideologies. And this actually gave me more fuel to conduct a study like this because I know that this would be a good addition to the current pool of knowledge that we have in terms of depressive language and critical discourse analysis. While most of these studies conducted in the past by these experts involved equipment and advanced technology, here in the Philippines, it's really saddening to say that we have limited resources for us to delve deeper into this kind of topic, into this kind of research arena. But we actually have the manpower, we actually have the human resource that we could use in order for us to really understand the context of language and depression or language and mental health. And as mentioned, there has been this scarcity of literature and studies that focus on depressive language in the Philippines. Well, one good thing is that our country, specifically the government, has become so proactive in pushing through different legislation such as those that really support the mental health. Okay, the mental health bill supporting those people suffering from mental health conditions. However, from the grassroots level, most especially in academics, I think there is really a need for us to deepen rather the context of the conduct of these studies and to really make sure to advocate more studies like this, not only in terms of psychology, but also in terms of linguistics and personality. Now, from the theoretical perspectives, there are actually a number of theories that could best explain depressive language and its features and their corresponding ideologies. For example, the theory of Tauzik and Pennebaker in 2010, which focuses on social and psychological meaning of words. And according to Tauzik and Pennebaker, there are actually certain ways on how we could identify the different categories and features found in a depressive language. For example, by looking at the attentional focus through identification of pronoun usage and verb tense. Well, in most cases, and based also on related studies, most cases, depressive language or those that are posted by people with depression would have more first-person pronoun pointing out to themselves, okay, the self-attentional focus, in which they would give the focus of the netizens or of the discourse interpreters, those who are reading the discourses, to themselves. And in that way, they are using pronouns heavily on I or me, and as well as past tense, verb tense. Another thing that we could look at in terms of depressive language based on Tauzik and Pennebaker is the emotionality. And when we talk about this aspect, one could look at the positive and negative emotion words. So we need to also create, to look at the balance between the positive and negative emotion words used in these depressive discourses created by people with depression. Another aspect that we could examine is more on the status dominance and social hierarchy. And there are also certain linguistic features that could help us better identify if a person would feel like socially dominant considering his or her mental condition, or if a person feels like he or she is on the lowest level of the social hierarchy because that person has mental health condition. Okay? Now, the second theory that we could use in determining linguistic features and as well as the context of the use of this depressive language is that of Bybee and Beckner's. This one is the usage-based theory. According to this theory, there has to be possible ways on how we could easily identify certain linguistic features present in depressive language. For example, categorization. Words or lexical items present in a depressive language could be categorized. You could also look at the patterns of usage. For example, the overusage of the pronoun I, or the overusage of certain lexical items in the discourses. Or it could also be the presence or the dominance of certain discourse markers, which are primarily used by depressive people only. And then there could also be chunking. For example, first phrase looks like this, and then the second phrase looks like this, and then the third phrase looks like this. So how depressed people chunk their expressions could also be a determiner whether or not that person really has depression or a mental health condition. Okay? Another thing is repetition. Oftentimes, if these depressed people would like to emphasize something to the public, they would repeat certain lexical items in their discourses. And there is also this presence of analogies. They would oftentimes analogize themselves, their life experiences with something difficult or something negative for them to create a narrative or create a story that people would easily understand or relate to. On one hand, the theory of Von Dijk on the proposition ideologies would actually tell us that even the depressed people, because they are suffering from stigma in society, have their own systems of beliefs, social constructs, experiences of stigma, and then this experience of powerlessness. And in relation to that, their experiences with regard to the different social practices and the social relations that they build because they have this mental health condition. Based on certain pieces of literature, it has actually been pointed out that these different social practices that we have now in society could really affect how people, these depressed individuals, see themselves. And consequently, their self-esteem is also highly impacted. That is why most of these individuals would resort to the use of Facebook or other virtual commons such as Twitter for them to express themselves because they are experiencing this stigma. And this is really something that is undeniable. It's a reality, it's a fact, and it's happening around us. And I think this is also one good thing that we could look at when we explore the linguistic elements or the linguistic features of depressive language, because this is one good way for us to better understand how the minds of these individuals, the depressed ones, work and how they relate socially in order for them to safe keep themselves away from whatever stigma or discrimination or stereotype there are or they will be experiencing in society. Bell in 2013, based on his metaphorical technique framework, suggests that there are ideological categories for people with depression and anxiety. And for these individuals suffering from depression, they actually see depression as a different entity. Okay? For example, they see depression as a source of aggression. Because of their depression, they could not understand their emotions. And that is why there are unexplainable emotions that they show not only towards themselves, but also towards the public. They could also see depression as sort of a criminal, committing crimes not towards the public, but towards themselves. For example, murdering themselves or suicide. That's why they have this ideology that depression is not just a psychological or mental health condition. For them, depression is also an enemy. It's like a criminal that slowly kills themselves. But the commission of the criminal act is not towards other people, but towards themselves. And lastly, these depressed people also see themselves as consumers. Consumers not only of the prescriptions or the medications, but also of the stigma in society. For them, it's actually passive consumption. So whenever there is stigma in society, they would just absorb it, they would just experience it, and they would just allow themselves to be drained in whatever negative emotions or negative consequences there could be after experiencing such a stigma. And if we consider the metaphorical technique framework of Bell in 2013, I think we would really better understand the ideologies, the sets of beliefs these depressed individuals have, not only as shown to the public, but also on various social media platforms that they primarily use for them to express themselves. Now, this very juncture, let me present to you the features of depressive language, but this one is in the context of a Filipino virtual community. So I have conducted already initial studies with regard to the features of depressive language, anchoring on the different theories available and as well as on the previously conducted empirical studies in the field of depressive language. Most of these were conducted by Pennebaker and Associates. And in this, in the context of this research, in the context of this academic undertaking, I actually look at the experiences of language consumption and production on Facebook groups. In the Philippine context, we could actually see on Facebook various groups that support mental health condition, okay, and individuals who suffer from mental health problems. And what I will be showing to you is actually based on my analysis, my careful examination of depressive language from 150 discourses available on Facebook. So as mentioned a while ago, self-attention or attentional focus is one of the elements that we could look at when we talk about depressive language. And according to Ireland and Pennebaker in 2010, those who are depressed use more first-person pronouns or self-references. For example, we have this post coming from a Facebook group. It's very hard to fight your anxiety in every night. I feel so alone, no one cares. Now, we could really see or we could really feel as well, based on this post, that this person is begging for attention. And the best way for this person to express that he or she needs that attention from the social public is for this person to use the first person pronoun. Okay. Now, the frequent use of the personal pronoun I is really evident in most discourses, not only in this sample, but also across other samples that I called from the Facebook groups. Frequent self-referencing is done to direct focus to the discourse marker. For example, I'm in need of a savior, but I'm not asking for favors. My whole life, I've felt like a burden. I think too much and I hate it. I'm so used to being in the wrong. I'm tired of caring. Now, the frequent use of the pronoun I here intensifies the attention not towards the story or the accounts mentioned in this post, but to the person, okay, who posted this discourse. Self-referencing is often juxtaposed with strong negative expressions. For example, I can't continue life anymore. If you notice, the pronoun I is collocated with a phrase that is strongly negative. For example, can't continue life anymore. Nothing feels right. It's like I'm a prisoner of my own life and the world is my cage. Kind of need to let go. It's really alarming because if you look at this one, we could already have attention, okay, the pronoun as our signal that this person is suffering from something or going through something. Apart from referencing, we also need to take into consideration the presence of negative emotion words. Penny Baker in 2010 suggests that in depression research, depressed people use more negative emotion words. Well, obviously, this is really the case, right? However, in the Philippine context, sometimes we find it very difficult because most of these individuals choose to express in English. But if you would cull more data from available Facebook pages or Facebook groups, we could see that these people are also code switching. And the code switching pattern here could also be one determiner for us to check if there have been words or negative emotion words in the English language and in the Filipino language. For example, the use of the negative emotion word depressed is explicit enough. I'm really depressed right now. I need someone to talk to about it. I need someone I can vest on. Now, in this context, we would really notice that the person here is emphasizing on the word depressed, depression. Now, let us also take note that not individuals who are part of these Facebook groups have been diagnosed really with major depressive disorder or a mental health condition. But based on the postings, we could already notice that maybe this person is really going through something. Strong negative emotion words such as depressed, alone, weary, worthless have been very evident in most of these posts. For example, feeling so lost, I'm a single mom of one and have been jobless and depressed, suicidal for some time now. No family support. I am all alone. We sleep hungry at times. But my son is too young to understand. I feel weary and worthless. The use of these strong adjectives, which are primarily negative, could add more to the reason why we could say that this person is really depressed. Because according to Penny Baker, in the context of depression research, those who are depressed use more negative emotion words in their discourses. Apart from words or expressions, we also have negative emotion phrases. And oftentimes, strong phrases that mean negative emotions are really evident in their posts or in the discourses. For example, virtual hug. I'm in pain. I'm losing my mind. I'm tired. If you notice, there is this repetition, which is a common pattern in depressive language. And then you could also notice the repetition of the emojis. Okay? If we are to take a look at this one on a multimodal level, we could understand that emojis here definitely would contribute to the meaning or the semantics of these discourses. But if we would focus more on the linguistic elements, the mere presence of these repeated pronouns, I, would already tell us that there is really going through, okay, in the mind of this person. This person is really suffering from a mental health condition. The use of negative emotion word and use of negative emotion phrases is also evident in the discourses. For example, I am really feel depressed with no friends, lonely in this life. Life always have been unfair with me. If you notice, the word depressed here is juxtaposed with negative emotion phrases. And this adds to the intensity of depression or the sad emotions evident in the discourses. And we also have more examples for negative emotion phrases. Those who use more positive emotion words and more emotion words in general are happier and more satisfied with life. Penny Baker in 2013. But sadly, if we would notice or examine this depressive language, we could hardly find positive emotion phrases or expressions. Most of the words used in these discourses are really negative. For example, tired of me, wrong with me, left out, sad, don't care, getting worse, no one wants to, badly need help, no one help me. And most of these expressions suggest self-isolation, okay, and self-pity as well. So we could already tell that with the presence of negative emotion phrases, these people really are going through with a mental health condition that we must look into. Now, onto the lexical categories. I actually categorized some of the expressions that I have gotten from the 150 discourses on the Facebook page. And these categories are based on related literature, which would point out that the lexical items found in depressive discourses could be categorized based on words that also pertain to depression or associative words. For example, one of the categories is mood. And if you could notice here, the first column, the second column here shows the negative lexical categories referring to mood in the English language. And the third column is in the Filipino language, okay, or the code switch, or the mixture of Filipino and English. Examples for mood: feel like I'm in a dark well, sadly depressed, not okay, or want to cry, stress. These words or these expressions pertain to emotions, okay, the mood of a person. Then here, even in the Filipino language, there is really this evident list of lexical categories pertaining to mood. Takot ako, napakahirap, anlungkot, naiiyak, nag-worry, na-stress, magalit, galit, depression, natitrigger. Words like this are really dominant in the expressions of these depressed people. The second category is interest. So any expression that pertain to loss of interest falls under this category. Example in English: I lost interest in everything I used to be passionate about, meaningless life. I'm tired, starting to lose my passion. And then in the Filipino language, nawawala ako lagi ng gana. Wala akong gana sa halos lahat ng bagay. Kulang na kulang ako sa motivation. Hindi ko na alam paano lumaban. Okay? Another category is appetite and weight. So these, or any expression that talks about sickness, health, okay, falls under this category: appetite and weight. Sick, illness, starvation, walang ganang kumain, nawawalan na ako gumana uminom ng antidepressant ko, nararamdaman ko na sumusuko na katawan ko. And then, the next category is sleep. So, it's really evident as well that these depressed individuals suffer from insomnia or lack of sleep. Example, in the English language, I can't sleep, having hard time falling asleep, insomnia, having insomnia, I cannot sleep much long. And then in the Filipino language, walang tulog ng maayos, disturb na talaga tulog ko. 2 months na po akong di nakakatulog ng maayos. See? Instead of telling these words or expressions to people in public or friends or families, they resort to expressing themselves on social media because they know that primarily the members of those virtual communities where they belong in could understand their situation because they share the same experiences or struggles. Another category is psychomotor agitation. Okay? For example, nagpapanik na ako. Psychomotor retardation, I can't feel anything, I feel numb. I have difficulty in breathing. Usually, psychomotor agitation are those expressions that talk about being agitated because of certain experiences or some traumatic experiences. For example, panic attacks. And then, psychomotor retardation refers to unexplainable body movements, for example, or unexplainable emotions or feelings. I have difficulty in breathing. Sabog na naman ang pakiramdam ko. I cannot function anymore. Hollow ako inside. Sakit na sa dibdib na hindi na ako makahinga. Sobrang hirap akong kumilos. Okay? And then, fatigue is also one of the categories. Obviously, the expressions I'm tired fall under this category. Bigla ka nilang napagod, nakakapagod, nakakaramdam ng pagod, pagod na po ako, pagod na ako mentally and emotionally. And then we also have another category, guilt and esteem. Okay, so any expression that talks about feeling guilty or having low self-esteem falls under this lexical category. Example, useless, nothing to grasp, I feel hopeless, I lost my confidence. And then kasalanan ko, walang may pake, walang nagmamahal, walang nag-aalala, kakambal ko ang malas, wala na akong pag-asa. Am I not worth it? So any expression that delves into self-pity, okay, this falls under this lexical category, guilt and esteem. And then we also have this lexical category called concentration. So anything that pertains to focus or lack of attention falls under this lexical category. I'm losing my mind. My way of thinking is getting affected. Hindi ko alam kung saan ako lulugar. Hindi mag-sink in sa utak ko, sakit na sa ulo, at war ang utak. Common expressions like this are really alarming. And among all lexical categories, this is the most dominant. Expressions that pertain to suicide. Now, if you notice here, these are the expressions in the English language. Maybe it's time for me to go. And if you notice, most of these individuals use expressions that are very subtle. Okay? They subtly express themselves that they want to commit, self-harm or suicide, they do not explicitly express it, but they use other expressions or statements for them to connote something to the public or the virtual public. Maybe it's time for me to go. I'm starting to learn to be numb and close my eyes for me not to see things that can affect me. Okay? The use of the word kutsilyo, ayaw ko nang gumising, parang ayaw ko na, di ko na kaya, gusto ko nang bumigay, ayaw ko na, please, itigil na sana, gusto ko nang mamatay. Some are explicit and some are also implied. Tara, magpahinga na sa nakakapagod na mundo. Okay? And if you are the researcher, understanding this lexical or these discourses, you would really feel blown away by these expressions. And you could not avoid yourself from feeling also the experiences of these individuals who have been going through for years, these mental health conditions that they have been diagnosed with. Okay? Now let's look at the word frequency in depressive language. And I use Ann Kong for me to accurately identify the word frequency. And if you notice here, first in the rank is the word ko. Okay? So basically this is a pronoun, ko. Okay? Self-attentional pronoun. And then third in the rank, we have I. Okay? So we could already see here, based on the word frequency, that pronouns really have been extensively used by these individuals. And so there's really this high degree of focus or self-attention that they injected through their discourses. And now let's look at the concordance set of the top one negative emotion word, which is hirap. By looking at the concordance set, we would know what are these dominant words and what are the juxtapose or the collocations. Okay? For example, hirap ako makipag-usap, hirap akong kumilos. So for the word hirap, okay, hirap, it could be hirap or hirap. Okay? Hirap gusto ko na makawala, hirap kausapin, hirap labanan. Ang hirap lalo na nasa isang place lang ako, hirap magkaroon, hirap maiwan, hirap ng pakiramdam, hirap ng walang kausap, hirap ng walang kausap. Expressions like this really have, there are commonalities in terms of the use of hirap or hirap. Okay? You would really feel the struggles that these people are really striving for them to, keep breathing and keep with the flow of their lives despite the mental health condition that they have or they have been going through. So aside from the word hirap, we also have the negative emotion word depression, and this comes second in the list. So for example, was diagnosed with depression, ma-diagnose ako may depression, can someone help me on my depression? Now if you notice, there is, based on the overall data, only 16 times lang nag-appear ang word na depression. This means that some of these individuals did not explicitly state the word depression in their discourses. And so they chose other expressions such as sadness, anxiety, and difficulties, hirap, words like this for them to cover up the depression that they're experiencing. And this is also one good way to look at how they carefully express themselves on social media. They carefully choose words as well, because if you would say depression, automatically people would think that it's really something grave already. It's something serious and that needs professional assistance. And so these people who are depressed choose other expressions or statements so that they would, express themselves more safely without explicitly stating about their depression. Now, on to the third word, hindi. Okay, hindi. Hindi ako makalabas. Hindi ako yung nagdabog, hindi siguro ganon, hindi itong ordinary, hindi ka nila papaniwalaan, hindi ka okay, hindi kami ang makikisama. You know what? The use of hindi here, well, obviously, in the Philippine context, hindi is already negative, right? It says no or not. But based on the context of the expressions here, you would really notice that most of the expressions hindi have been associated with negative emotion phrases. Hindi ko magawa, hindi ko na alam. So confusion, uncertainty, anxiety, okay, pessimism. And these are the dominant collocates of the word hindi in the discourses or in the depressive language. So apart from hindi, we also have the word gusto. Now we know that the word gusto in the Philippine context means want. So we would automatically think that if depressed people would use the word gusto in their expressions, they are being optimistic or they are being hopeful. However, if you look if you carefully examine the collocates of the word gusto, you would notice that even the word gusto has been collocated several times with negative emotion phrases. For example, gusto ko na lang iiyak, gusto ko na makawala, gusto ko na sirain buhay ko, gusto ko nang bumigay, gusto ko nang mamatay. So see, you would really see the intensity of negativities or the negative emotion based on these discourses alone. Even the positive word gusto, which signifies want, drive, motivation, determination, these depressed people use this word differently in a negative manner. So this tells us a lot about the mental health condition of these people. Another word, alam. Alam is, the word itself is not really negative, right? It means knowing more or understanding things. However, in the context of depressive language or depressive discourses, alam could be associated with uncertainties, okay? Or lacking attention or lacking focus on things. For example, hindi ko alam kung bakit, hindi ko rin alam kung bakit. Alam mo sa sarili, alam mo na ikaw, alam niyo ba yung pakiramdam, wala naman akong alam puntahan. So usually, the word alam, based on the context of depressive language, was used as a collocate for anxiety, negative expression, lack of self-focus, okay, lack of attention, things like this. And then, the word wala. Okay, take a look at how the word wala was used in the discourses. Wala akong gana sa halos lahat ng bagay. Wala akong mukhang maiharap. Wala akong silbi. Also negative. Well, we already know that the word wala means nothing. It's already negative. Okay. However, the intensity of the negativity in the word wala alone has been doubled because of the collocates. Wala akong gana, wala akong kumpiyansa, wala na akong motivation, wala naman akong alam puntahan, wala akong trabaho, wala akong silbi. Okay? Expressions like this make us understand them better. And then, buhay. Okay? It's either buhay or buhay. But based on the context of the discourses, most of the depressive language here used buhay instead of buhay. Okay? So they are talking about life. If not life, well, the another meaning would be alive. Okay, buhay. Okay, example, nararamdaman kong buhay ako. Hindi naman ako masaya sa buhay. Makawala sa ganitong buhay. Nawalan na ako ng direksyon sa buhay. Nawala sa iyo ang mahal mo sa buhay. Gusto ko na sirain buhay ko. See? Even the positive word buhay, which signifies life, okay, being alive, being passionate once again, being enthusiastic, being lively, this word was used negatively in the depressive language. And you would really understand more that these people, even if you would give them positive words or positive reinforcements or encouragements, they would really see things negatively. Okay, and we cannot blame them because of the depression that they are going through. And that's how powerful that's how powerful depressive language becomes, because it could be considered as a sort of a platform, an instrument for us to better understand also their experiences, their stories, their struggles on a daily basis. Okay, and by looking at the language, okay, or on the expressions linguistically, by focusing on the linguistic elements or the linguistic features, we would better understand their world, okay, the world of depressed. Now, based on the majority of the pronouns used, we could see here that the word ko, okay, has been used widely or extensively by the depressed people. And this signifies more self-focus, okay, more attention to self. And then the word parang, okay? The word parang here shows uncertainty, okay? And based on the theory of Pennebaker, okay, whenever there are words that signify or signal uncertainty, then these people are going through depression or a mental health problem. Okay, whenever they lack focus or attention on details, these people are going through something. Okay, for example, parang ayaw ko na, parang di ko na kaya, parang hindi mo deserve yung award, parang nabubuhay ako sa kumunoy. Okay, very heavy. And I'm sorry, I forgot to edit this one. The word bakit. Okay, bakit also signifies uncertainty. Oftentimes we use bakit for why, right? If we translate it to English, and it's actually an interrogative pronoun. But in the context of this expressions in the Philippine context, we would notice that the word bakit has been used to determine, okay, or I mean to signal uncertainty in their expressions. For example, kasalanan ko din siguro kung bakit ganito. Mabuti ikaw pa rin masama. Bakit ganun? Bakit kaya ganun? Bakit ko ito nararamdaman? Bakit may nasasabi pa sila sa akin? Okay, confusion, questions, doubts, uncertainties. Okay, that's the context of the usage of bakit in depressive language. Now, since we have already understood the different linguistic features present in the depressive language, let's go deeper. Understand the struggles of these individuals suffering from depression and experiencing stigma in society. Tauzik and Pennebaker in 2010 maintained that depressed and suicidal individuals are more self-focused and are expressive of more negative emotions and death-related words. And because of this, I have noticed that one of the strongest ideological patterns in the posts of these individuals is death and escape. Okay, for example, feeling so lost, I'm a single mom. If you notice here, the word suicidal was used in the expression. The moment I opened my eyes, the very first thing that comes into my mind is, what if I hang myself tonight? Okay? Death and self-harm are considered to be the best means to end the pain and escape from the reality of suffering. This is based on the discourses, okay, the experiences of language production as evidenced in these virtual commons. And we could notice that death and escape, both of them, have been heavily observed or considered in the expressions of themselves. So it's either they express themselves they express that they would like to harm themselves, they would like to commit suicide, they would like to kill themselves, or they would like to escape from the struggles that they are going through now that they are alive, or that they would like to escape from reality. Okay? So that's the first ideology that I have extracted based on the discourses of these depressed individuals. Second one is loneliness and solitude. Well, obviously, based on the presence and the highly evident negative emotion words in the depressive language, we cannot deny that this ideology is really extant or existent. Now, Tauzik and Pennebaker also said that there have been more negative emotion words present in a depressive language as used by depressed individuals. For example, it's very hard to fight your anxiety every night. I feel so alone. So the use of the word alone in this discourse already signifies that there is loneliness on the end of the person. Don't have friends, and that makes me very sad. Okay? The lack of company and strong support system makes them more vulnerable to the pain they are feeling. Although these people are sharing on a virtual common or in a virtual space through Facebook groups, they still do not feel like they have the support system or they have the company. Because if you notice, people could just react on the post without even commenting. It's really totally different when you express yourself physically or personally to a person. Okay, you let a friend, a peer, or a family member know about your situation, and feedback or reaction would be automatic. But unlike the physical situation or the face-to-face situation where you get to express yourself, in a virtual common, mechanisms such as liking or sending reactions such as heart or care reactions are the options, okay? These are the only ways for you to also respond to the posts that pertain to loneliness and solitude. The next ideological pattern is help and salvation. While it is true that most of these individuals, the depressed people, have expressed that they would like to end themselves, to end their life, to kill themselves, to commit suicide, there are still some posts which signify that these individuals want to seek for help, okay, not necessarily professional help, but help from the public, okay, and even salvation from whatever struggles they have been going through. Example, hello, I'm just can't stop crying every day. I just wonder, is there any tips how to end this or this life without harming myself? Please, I need help. See, even if asking for help is supposed to be a positive thing, but in this context, in this very discourse, you could notice that asking for help has been used by this person as in a negative manner. Okay, asking as to how he or she could end herself. I'm in need of a savior, but I'm not asking for favors. My whole life, I felt like a burden. I think it's too much, and I hate it. I'm so used to being in the wrong. I'm tired of caring. The call for help and redemption from the experiences is loud enough on social media. Okay. And personally, I would say that how I wish this is really existing in society. Like the call for help and redemption from mental health is as loud as the call on social media. They look for people whom they can talk to and who can understand their pain. And that is why they resort to using social media platforms because they could not express themselves with people, okay, in society. So that is why it's very important to give these individuals more platforms where they could express themselves, not only virtual but also physical. Another is hope and resilience. As mentioned, some of them are really positive, but if you notice, most of these discourses are just brief. Okay, they also said that Tauzik and Penny Baker in 2010 said that positive emotion words or phrases are very rare in depressive language. For example, need some advice or an opinion, hope and resilience. How can I defeat sadness? Hope can still be felt. Resilience is still evidenced by asking for pieces of advice, help, and consolation. Now, what do these findings tell us? Language, considering its most basic function, is to communicate. Samin and Fiedler in 1988 indicate that words provide pieces of information about different social practices. Also, word choice provides information about person reception. Okay? Now, in understanding the words or discourses of depressed people, we really need to understand them through the lens of their pain, silent battles, hopes, and struggles. And I think one of the best ways, aside from diagnosing them or identifying whatever mental health condition they have, is through exploring the language that they are using. Because these languages, the depressive language, showcases a lot of red flags or signals. Okay? Many people with mental health issues such as depression report that misunderstanding and stigma make it more difficult to acknowledge their difficulties and seek any help for fear of discrimination from family, friends, and employees. That's according to University of Reading in 2021. Well, we cannot close our eyes with the reality. We could not avoid the reality. We could not step away from reality because reality already tells us that mental health condition and mental health awareness need significant voices to be raised not only on virtual commons but also in society. So why do we have to conduct more studies on depressive language? First, conducting studies like this would be very significant to applied linguists and discourse analysts, scholars and academics in the field of linguistics and language studies. Through conducting this, we could better understand the world of depressed individuals. Mental health experts and professionals could also use studies like this as a springboard for them to identify more mechanisms or for them to create more policies that could help support the world of mental health. Academic institutions and mental health facilities could also use this as a basis on how they could strengthen their programs or interventions, their enhancement programs for them to really address the needs of these depressed people or depressed individuals. Government and NGOs could also use this as a basis in creating policies that would advocate or progress legislations or policies, mechanisms in relation to mental health, not only here in the Philippines, but also across the globe. Students in the fields of linguistics and psychology might want also to pursue further studies on this. In this way, they could better understand not only the psychological aspect, but also the linguistic side of depressive language. Future researchers, passionate and prolific individuals could use these studies or frameworks of these studies as a basis in the conduct of future studies. And we should conduct more studies on depressive language for the benefit of our very own mental health system here in the country. Okay? We should not stick with what's available only at the present. We should advance more for the benefit of those people who are suffering from mental health problems. And of course, society, for us to avoid stigma in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, to end this discussion, let me remind you that what people never understand is that depression isn't about the outside, it's about the inside. Through understanding their language, we get to enter their world as well. So, to all linguists, scholars, who are listening to this presentation, I hope you get inspired and motivated to conduct more studies on depressive language. You might not know, with a single study you are conducting, you are already saving one life. So thank you so much for listening to this special lecture. And I'm hoping that you will also look forward to attending our next set of special lectures on linguistics, language teaching, and communication research hosted by the Language Educators Toastmasters Club. And if you are very interested in becoming a member of this first ever club in the Philippines, just send an email to aperochomycodemi@gmail.com. If you have any questions, please do email them to my email address, aperochomycodemi@gmail.com, and I would be very glad to address each one of them. Thank you so much for listening, and I'd like to see you in our next set of special lectures. Thank you.